Hey, welcome back to the Miami Minute. I'm your host, Brian. This show, we cover my favorite team, the Miami Dolphins. And, sometimes when I'm trying to find stories to talk about each day here on the Wicked Good Sports channel, I'm at a loss. I'm really scraping the bottom of the barrel. But fortunately, today, despite being a day that a lot of people have off, the Dolphins clearly don't have today off as they have made some big moves to clear up over $53 million in cap space, starting with the release of Bradley Chubb. So, Chubb was traded to the Dolphins back in 2022, 2023, so that era. And he was somebody who was supposed to come in and be a star for the Dolphins. And in the beginning, he kind of was. Had a couple of sacks when he got traded that year. He only had half the year here. And then he had 11 sacks the next year, but he did tear his ACL and was out for the rest of 2023 and then missed all of 2024 before returning this year in 2025 and having 8 sacks. So, pretty solid player, but they did give him a big contract. And ultimately, the new regime, the John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley regime, want to go a different direction than what they had. So, they're getting rid of Bradley Chubb, and I think that makes sense. Probably the move of the day that makes the most sense, of course, is the release of Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, absolute superstar when he came to the Dolphins a few years ago. He almost had 2,000 yards one season. He made a lot of very exciting plays. He also made a lot of headlines off the field that weren't so great. Getting into a fight with someone at a dock, getting arrested before the first game of the season a couple years ago. Domestic disputes. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows with Tyreek Hill. And even on the field, when the Dolphins were eliminated from playoff contention last week of the 2024 season, going out there and just quitting on the team, not playing anymore, and then being like, I gotta get out of here. Well, he's got his wish. He is out of there. Now, next up, we have offensive guard James Daniels. Daniels is someone who last year we were like, hey, this could be a great pickup for the Dolphins. He might add some stability, but he has some injury concerns. And honestly, that was something that was pretty recurring with a lot of the free agents and even players who started on the team, to a chief among them. A lot of them had injury concerns, and James Daniels played, I want to say 3 snaps last season before he was out for the entire season. So that ultimately didn't work out. Then there's Nick Westbrook-Ikini, somebody who I actually thought the Dolphins were going to get a lot of use out of as a third receiver. Washington obviously passed him on the depth chart, and we just barely ever saw Westbrook-Ikini on the field at all. So that was a very disappointing signing, someone who didn't amount to much. I know a lot of people are saying maybe they're going to release Tua. I think they're going to try to trade him. I would imagine that's the case. They're going to need to get a situation like when the Browns traded for Brock Osweiler from the Houston Texans. The Texans also sent over some picks to sweeten the deal in order to get someone to take the massive contract that Tua has, much like Osweiler had an extremely massive contract back then. Will they be able to do that? I don't know. It's very hard to tell what other teams think of Tua because I've spent so long defending him, riding for him, believing that he was as good a quarterback as he's shown at times, but it's become clear that his body's really failing him, and a lot of the talent from earlier in his career has gone by the wayside. So, does anyone even want to take a flyer on him? To the point where I know the Dolphins, owe him a lot of money, and they saw a future with him a few years ago in order to give him that contract, but I don't even know if anybody will pick him up. It's very, very possible that they cut bait on Tua and he doesn't get picked up at all. Though probably if that is the worst case scenario, he does get signed somewhere on like a veteran minimum, similar to how Russell Wilson went to the Steelers after the Broncos gave him a huge contract and then cut bait on him after a couple years under that. So a lot of interesting moves. And unsurprisingly, this new regime is shaping the team in their ideal image. And a lot of these players who are either older and overpriced or just aren't producing like the previous regime thought they would, or just don't fit in to the ideals that they have going forward, are going to be let go. And it's not really that surprising, but it is, an interesting storyline to follow with the Dolphins. And it's going to be very interesting and hopefully fun to see this team rebuild themselves into something more. I do expect now next season to be a complete rebuild, tear it down to the studs, rebuild it. So that's not something a lot of Dolphins fans want to hear. I obviously hear you there. It's been frustrating to watch this team kind of spin their tires for years and years, but it is what it is. And yeah, just let me know what you think about these moves. Are there any players that you're surprised were let go? I think of the four, they all make sense. And now they actually have some cap room going into next season, and then a lot of cap room going into the season after. So let me know your thoughts about these moves in the comments. Please subscribe. Also check my profile out, Brian Maher, on Dolphins Talk, where I'm writing about the team very frequently. You might just be watching this video on Dolphins Talk, in which case there's tons of blogs today on all of the moves that happen. So go check out all my fellow writers there. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.